This is TPG Live, and I'm Jeremy Horn, also known as the Product Guy. We're about to begin. This is your stage, no matter where you are in your product journey. From startups to Fortune 500s, interns to CEOs, we're a global community that values every voice. TPG Live is a show where everyone, both on and off camera, is encouraged to join in and shape the conversation with your insights, your questions, and your topics. Just hop into the chat room, and in real time, I will strive to include as many of your comments within the broader conversation. Today, the on-camera portion of our roundtable is joined by Pamela Schur, who is a well-recognized product management thought leader and co-author of the book Product Management for Dummies. With 20-plus years in product management at such companies as Apple, Adaptec, and 280 Group, she has been focused on digital transformation in scaled environments. Also, as a specialist in training and coaching product managers, she most recently product coached at Ford and MTA. We are also joined by Niranjan Rode, who can be found leading the next-gen product platform modernization efforts at Real Matters. He is a product leader with 11-plus years of experience in fintech, driving innovation through AI/ML integration and cloud modernization. Niranjan is a mentor and speaker committed to developing future product managers. Also passionate about helping solve hunger problems in India, Niranjan co-founded the social impact organization hungerwarriors.org. Here we'll be discussing AI-powered product management and overcoming product team roadblocks. Ask yourself, how can AI be used more effectively to drive the product lifecycle? What roles do leaders play in addressing and removing roadblocks for their teams? Join us in the chat room and at the roundtable as we discuss all this and much more coming up next on TPG Live, your go-to platform for all things product management, connecting you with industry leaders, trendsetters, and a global community of insights and unique perspectives. This is the Product Way. Well, hello. Welcome everyone who's joining us both on camera and off. Niranjan, Pamela, is there anything I left out of your bios that you'd like to add there? Did I capture it all?
I think I should record it because I think you did an awesome job.
Well, good news, it is recorded. There we go. Niranjan, anything to add?
No, you covered it all. It sounded like a WWE introduction, like weighing 200 and something pounds, and yeah, it was fun. Thanks.
That's great. So I want to get kicked off here and get started with talking about, I like to kind of start every one of our TPG Lives with a question of the night, question of the show. And so for today's question of the show, and I'll get that up on the screen so that everyone can kind of participate in this, it's, if your product roadmap was a musical genre, what would it be? So once again, for everyone and joining in the comments, definitely post into the comments answers to this question. Tell us why. We'll also, as we go through the show, if you have questions, I'll work them into the conversation as well so that everyone gets to participate. So if your product roadmap was a musical genre, what would it be? Niranjan, let's start with you.
Yeah, a fun question. I did give it some thought, and I dilly-dalled between a couple of genres, but I think I settled on classical music. Reason being, I think my product roadmaps are a bit thought out. You have to be a bit flexible. I know classical music can be a bit rigid, but then the good part is once you nail down the framework of any, like the musical aspect of it, you can just play around with the notes. You can go higher, lower, and do whatever with it. So that gives me the flexibility, but it has an end vision for long-term, achievements and milestones.
Great. That's great. Classical music. That was going to be my second pick. That was my second pick. Pamela?
My first is jazz. I think it's a jazz score. I think because you've got lots of different people and they've all got their perspectives and they've all kind of got to get to, some kind of harmony, some kind of path. But without them each knowing when to riff, you just don't create something that's very interesting.
Yes.
So.
Oh man, so my boring answer was jazz.
Yours was jazz too. There you go.
Yeah, I liked it for I picked jazz for jazz to me is a very collaborative music. allows for a lot of improv and spontaneity, experimentation. And I felt that's why I leaned in that direction to that topic there. So
I will
yay,
say,
2 jazz, 1 classical. Let's see if we get what else we might have. 90s country from
That's
Taji.
good.
Proto punk. I might not be familiar with that one. And Jonathan Cook. Oh, this one I'm enjoying. Definitely industrial, aggressive, and changing the feel quarterly. So, so those are great. Those are
there was
great.
something that was interesting about the classical, though, because if you actually analyze classical music, they kind of riff, they kind of come back to themes. And if you think about it, very often you come back over and over again, and you're refining every time what you're actually going to be putting out there in the world. So there is that. So,
Yeah. I did move between jazz and classical, but I really like some of the comments in here. I at one point in time I was thinking, does it fit indie country style as well? But probably ended up on classical.
I was as I was thinking about this question myself, I started to go really all over the place, but then I kind of only know jazz, so, so I kind of went there. Classical was a good runner up for myself at least. But that's cool. That's cool. So I want to I want to kind of dive into our first topic here of the show today, and it's about AI powered product management. For those of you joining us, maybe you've heard of AI. It's a thing now. And so AI-powered product management, harnessing artificial intelligence for strategic decision-making and execution. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look into, what I want to explore here is how are you using AI to help drive your own product, to drive your product management, the development cycle? How is it impacting your day-to-day as a product person, as a product manager? And I'd say for the audience, if you could use AI for one task in product management, what would it be? Feel free to share that. Feel free to share that in the comments. And so, really, for our first question, and I'll direct this one to you, Pamela, regarding kind of AI's role in decision making. How are you seeing AI enhance or shift the strategic decision making process in product management?
first of all, let me just say that with anything having to do with computing, fundamentally, it's synthesizing a lot of things, but it's not generating new knowledge. It's not generating the synthesis. So if I look at AI and product management, I think it's most useful for coming up and categorizing information you have, but allowing AI to make decisions to be at the fore of making a decision. I find that very risky. I really do. Right. So I like the fact I can load it with loads of stuff. I do not want to spend time analyzing and have it spit stuff out at me. And I go, oh, thank God, I just saved myself hours.
So are you seeing AI used whether it's yourself or your clients? Are you seeing it being used in any kind of strategic function?
I don't know. I haven't seen it used in a strategic function. I've seen it as decision support, but not leading.
So tell me about that. What do you mean by decision support?
Decision support is basically doing the core analysis that's needed to be done, so you can actually take it to the next step, right? You want it to come back with these are the categories of things that we're seeing. This is what the data says. Fine. It's up to me to look at that and go, well, this makes sense, and this doesn't make sense.
All right, so that would be a way it's enhancing it. Is it ChatGPT that people are using, or are there other tools that you're seeing kind of help in the strategic process?
I think there's that, and then there's how AI is being implemented in the product analytics space, right? With Optimizely and Amplitude and places like that.
Okay.
Like they're doing some creative things with it, right? Again, they're just going the next step on data analysis. The decision's left with the PM group.
Right.
Niranjan, same question for you.
I think I agree with what just Pamela said. I would never be comfortable letting AI make any decisions, or even for that matter, suggest
Sure,
or
but
point.
we're looking specifically at how are we using AI to enhance or shift that decision process.
Mostly by analytics. So majorly, I've used AI, or I see people using AI for categorizing customer feedback, user feedback. Wherever you have large data sets and you want to normalize it by making some quick representation out of it, so you can make sense. Another good part is competitive analysis, but here you have to be a bit careful because sometimes, depending on what engine and what version, etc., you're using, AI can make some things up on their own. So that's the risky part to it. But yeah, it's just the support, uh, data or documentation or any artifacts that you wanted to create, which will lead to a decision. That's one thing, and you can simulate a lot of option analysis by using AI, which leads to some predictive analysis. So that's where I see the most use of it.
So I want to kind of double click into that a little bit. So like, what specific PM functions do you see being most impacted by kind of these AI driven insights?
Some of the PM functions can be as simple as creating your own SWOT analysis. For example, you're trying to do that. So majorly again to do with what competitive information is available in the market, gathering it in one place, and how useful you can make it for your artifact, whatever you're creating. Another good thing I find is you can put in your data or your requirements and try and fine tune it a bit more to create your BRDs or something. Not have AI write everything, but it gives you a good structure, a thoughts process, etc. Especially if you're starting at a blank slate, right? It's also good use as a sounding board where you just throw in some stuff and see what it comes out with. So a simple experiment for any PM, like for example, if you get a task, you have no idea what to do, just throw it in there. It will give you some direction, but don't use it for anything more than that, would be my word of caution.
Yeah, I think sometimes when I'm trying to get started on something, tossing it into Chat GPT, man, it's gonna be hard for me to say that all night. Um, uh, Tossing it in there and kind of seeing what it comes up with at least gives me a starting point to either agree with it or disagree with it. So sometimes it helps me kind of come up with that initial draft. Yeah, I agree with you, Pamela. Like it's not going to come up with necessarily something unique, but it might also put two things together that I didn't think of before that I can then kind of riff off of. So I find that to be helpful in my process. I always have a lot of starting friction with tasks. And so for me, knowing I can throw it out there, see what bounces off the wall, and then kind of iterate from there, definitely helps me kind of work through a lot of these types of things. So Pam, I want to go back to you. There is a lot of buzz around AI, and people have been talking about how AI is going to have such a large impact on product management. Do you think the near term, medium term, long term? Do you see AI as having that kind of impact? Do you see it as that has that potential to be the game changer? Or are you expecting it just to be hype?
I want to break it down a little bit because what you said is very broad, right? Okay, so in my mind, I break it down into two bits. Okay, so one bit is how am I going to use it to make myself and my team more productive? One, okay, and I think there are great places to do that. And I'm going to throw in my personal favorite, which is I hate writing meeting notes. So anything which will get me out of meeting notes is a winner in my book. Okay. The second part, I think this is the bit that product managers need to be really wary of, is being asked to shoehorn AI in no matter what. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where I would kind of go slow and really focus on your customers' needs and see if there's a really valid use case. And in that case, I'd bring it back up and say, okay, AI may be able to help us here and here and here. But to kind of do a peanut butter, if I throw AI on it, it's going to make it better. I'm not sure that really works.
So are you talking about shoehorning it into the product or the process? So
into the product. I think
okay,
a lot of product managers are being asked, we have to have something with AI in it. It might be a startup and we'll get more funding if it has AI. I heard of a case recently of someone who didn't have any AI in their product at all, but rebranded and got lots of money. So you can lie, I guess, maybe. But I see the use cases primarily within the process of product management and with a lot of caveats, looking at your product, trying to figure out where it might make a difference to your customers, what their needs are, analyze 14 times, and then make sure the AI is the right solution to deliver to it. Because there's nothing worse than, Naranjan, you live in Canada, right? So the Air Canada story, yeah, we'll reimburse that. No, we won't, right? So you don't want that kind of interaction with your customers. So be very, very cautious.
Yeah, and I think specifically to our conversation today, I really want to focus on the impact on the product process. Definitely, just as a quick aside to what you're saying, also, yeah, anytime people are starting with the technology as the thing to use as opposed to the problem to solve, it's going to almost always go astray. But specifically kind of around the product management itself and the process, Naranjan, what do you see as that real world impact? What are you seeing as an impact today? What do you see as the potential?
Yes, I think again it will come down to how it's being used. So if we are talking about even product processes, one thing I'm always cognitive about is what level of trust does my organization have with the AI agent? Like, do we have a professional version signed up for? Are we okay letting out some data on the web and all? So there are a lot of ethical aspects that come to it first. Second, again, if someone is just putting in a lot of data and trying to create a roadmap out of it, it's probably going to fail. So what product functions you can actually quickly speed up, or maybe just trying some mock-ups through it, trying some very ground level tasks which are more time consuming. Like I said, having a template created out of it, or without sharing any PII or any confidential data. If there is any reasoning that you can do with the AI agent, like let's say you're preparing for a meeting and you're like, hey, what are the questions I can anticipate, provided these are the people who are going to be in that meeting, these are my stakeholders, etc. So those things I've found it to be really helpful to help you gear up and speed up some of your processes in terms of, instead of taking a week, you might do them in 2 days, including some kind of analysis.
Do you guys find that very often when you're in sessions that the kind of information that you're collecting is very random, and it's not categorized, not in any order, right? And that process of taking this huge deluge of information and turning into something that makes sense to people, I think that first categorization, AI is good for things like that.
Yes. Also, I think whenever we are using it, no matter what the use case, right? Like, first of all, as product, if I'm going to use it even in my own product process or journey, the first thing I'm very clear about is what's my use case, what I'm trying to get out of the AI. Second thing I do is I first try and understand the limitations of the engine that I'm going to be using. For example, Gemini has some limitations, ChatGPT has some other limitations, and what version or model is it running on? Well, like if I use 3 versus 4 versus the latest one, then the reasons and responses are going to be very different. So I cannot have an analytical task run on, let's say, version 3 of ChatGPT. I'll have to have its latest one because that has more mathematical and cognitive capability built into it. So, and even directly jumping into the task, I would again advise someone, or my personal approach is first understand this, define the use case, and then see if it actually is going to help me in my task.
Richard, and I don't know if we're supposed to talk about the comments, but Jonathan Cook made a good comment. He goes, unstructured data becoming structured.
Yeah.
I like that one.
That's a good one. Jonathan also had the interesting musical selection as well. At the beginning, a lot of people in a lot of surveys out there. One that I did recently, people were talking about how they were using AI to help them optimize, help them with prioritization, and kind of. I guess I don't know what tools necessarily they were using, and I was kind of curious. how AI could be used to optimize execution in the product lifecycle itself. Pamela, since I've got you on screen, let me direct that question to you.
I'm going to punt to Naranjan because I got to think about that. So
All right. There you go. Punted, Naranjan.
Very interesting. So actually, the one use case that I see here is maybe not for actually prioritizing your roadmap, but if you're actually able to give in some parameters of what prioritization framework you're trying to use, or what is the weightage of, and all the reasoning behind why you consider one versus other, it might actually give you a structured response to say that, yeah, you can like have a suggestion that this can be prioritized this way. If it's talking more about execution, then you might want to use it to find out synergies. So synergies in, let's say, if you have a very short timeline to launch something, right? What is the most efficient way to get around it? It will all depend on organizational structure and a lot of other parameters, but AI can again give you some indication on which direction you can move towards, like a couple of things that can be done in parallel, etc., something like that. But frankly, I haven't used it in such aspect, or haven't seen much use of it in such aspects in people that I've been talking to.
I haven't. I'm sitting here trying to imagine how I would actually do that, and I haven't come up with a way to actually present the problem correctly to the AI agent. That's my problem, right? Like how do you kind of crank open your own brain and dump it into Chat GPT in a good enough format that what comes back makes sense?
Right. That's where I think you may like people can experiment with custom GPT models. So what I've tried to, when I was trying to create a prioritization agent, let's say just for the fun of it, what I was trying to do is build a custom GPT model, and then it had a very specific set of instructions as to, let's say, cost. This is the cost. This you have to consider this weightage. This is the customer impact, and I'll feed you information in that that specific format in prompts, and then you will do all the calculations and permutations for me, and then spit out some prioritization, like prioritized or stack ranked list
Options. Yeah.
Again, then I started adding a confidence percentage to it. Like, now you have given me a plan A, right? How confident are you to it? The results were not very great, but yeah, it was fun as an exercise to try it out for sure. But yeah, it will all come down to what information and what prompts you're feeding any AI model to get a very weighted response, or a very accurate response on specifically on prioritization.
My experience is even trying to use sort of weighted tools. I think our own brains already stack the deck.
Oh yeah.
So whatever we would feed the AI, it would just feed us back. It would reflect back what it hears from us.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. There'll be an inherent bias for sure. Yes.
Oh, I like Jonathan's comment. AI is always confident. Yes, it is always like, yep, this is the right answer, and you have to go.
AI is usually apologizing to me for getting it wrong. So
is it really?
I have yeah.
You have a very different AI tool than I do.
I might be speaking somewhat sternly to it.
I'll try speaking sternly to it and see if I can get it.
So, like, looking into the future. So, like, looking into the future, not just looking at like what sort of tools we're kind of dealing with right now, but what are some of the most exciting ways that you see AI could transform product management if you're looking out maybe the next few years?
For me, I'm kind of more excited because I think most of us live in an 80-20 world, right? And that means that we're focused on the 20% of the groups that we care about, and giving them the attention because they provide 80% of revenue. Just to take that point of view. But what it means is they're 80% of the people that get a very substandard experience. And I think AI could kind of pick up the slack on that, right? They could give a better experience to more customers. And I was talking with someone who basically deals with a lot of customers, and he was saying that they have changed the way that they process information that they get from their clients. This is a healthcare thing, so I can't go into too much detail. And he was like, now we can actually do better for everybody, no matter how small their issue is, as opposed to, well, we'll deal with the $1 million issue and the other one would just ignore. Not that big.
So Naranjan, same to you. Like, how do you see what are those kind of exciting ways that you see AI changing that product management role a few years from now, or over the next few years, we'll say?
Right. I think it will merge a lot of things. So first thing is for sure it will sorry, lost my train of thoughts. But yeah, what I was trying to say is it will be your sounding board for that expert in the room. So let's say when you're talking about architecture, if there is a product manager who is suddenly put on a project to, let's say, about machine learning, right? And then you want to quickly speed up learning, your own self-learning about machine learning models and different things. Yes, AI is a great tool to quickly bring you up to that baselines. It's also a great tool for analytics, right? And again, I think it will be another good tool to use for creating your very impactful presentations. Obviously, you cannot just copy paste AI language, but it kind of helps you. It has helped me a lot in making my sentences concise. I tend to write very long sentences using and but and whatnot in between. But yeah, now I'm naturally able to do that when I was using AI for a month to see what the how it responses are. Now my brain has figured out, okay, now look, here's when you break the sentence and those things. So I think upskilling, bringing in more efficiency in your analysis part, and it will be a great support tool now as well as going forward.
Yeah, so I'm hearing a lot of analysis, summarization, and do you see? So you don't feel? I guess I'll throw a toss-up question. So neither of you really feel too threatened by AI out there, kind of replacing or having any large-scale impact on your roles in the next let's say 5 years.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think what it is going to show, though, because all of this relies on information and data, I think working with other teams and making sure you have a complete vision or visibility into all the data means that other departments who previously sort of shoved an idea at you and said, go do it, right? Now, we all need to contribute our knowledge base into this so that we can come up with a better decision. And that points to part two, which is in product management, I think we're kind of used to learning new technologies, figuring out what it means, figuring out what we can do with it and move on. And I don't think other organizations are like that at all. Yeah. I think it's very spotty. If I go into a sales organization and said, what's ChatGPT doing for you? I'm guessing. I'm guessing it's 25%. They would have a clue. And would I trust it? No. Okay. So when we get the real benefits, it means that we've all pulled everything that we know and that everybody within the company is comfortable enough with AI technology to make sure that they've brought enough awareness, knowledge, whatever it is, into this global pie. So maybe I'm looking out a couple of years as the next issue.
Yeah.
Naranjan, how do you see it affecting your role over the next few years, 5 years?
Right. Certainly not threatened. I think if anything, it's going to make my role or make me more efficient in my role. Again, just because of availability of information and the way it processes it. That's going to be really helpful. It will all come down to how that person ends up using the output from AI. Like, there always has to be your own thoughts, your own personalization on top of whatever you get as an output from your AI agent. But certainly excited to keep using it, and I think it's going to make a lot of people a lot better at their job.
So when you say more efficient in what way?
Like multiple ways. So right from creating mock-ups to analysis to even, like I said earlier, example was more quickly to grasp onto concepts. Like for example, with my product, I have to deal with a lot of compliance things as well, right? And every time I'm not really well versed with reading the legal language. So now being dependent on someone from an external legal standpoint, not like we're not taking legal advice from AI, but just to kind of go through that language to say, hey, what are the keywords? Can you summarize this paragraph and something like that? So even in product management world, you have to read a lot. Like, when you are researching, doing product discovery, especially competitive analysis, you have to refer to 10 different sources. Now, if I just throw into AI and say, for example, hey, how do I achieve a product market fit? Give me top 10 do nots in product market fit along with the source from where you've got it from, right? So that itself saves me a lot of time, and obviously then makes me more efficient at reaching the goal that I'm trying to reach to.
So let me throw a word of caution. So I think it's really good when you have an existing market, right? And you kind of know and you want to extend your product. And I think it's going to work really well.
Right.
If you want to have the kind of crazy insight that generates the new thing, I don't know that AI is going to get us there.
No.
I don't think AI is going to get us there. I think we're going to have to read through what it produces really carefully and go, yeah, that works. Kind of like, a 10-year-old turning in their homework. You can go, yep, they got this point, they got that point. What the heck is this, right? Okay, so we have to kind of look through it, and I think we have to add the emotional layer.
Yes.
So I heard an interesting person talk. They were trying to use AI. They were trying to use AI to decipher what people wrote, and it turns out AI doesn't understand sarcasm.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've learned that lesson.
Yeah. You're from New York. I mean, that would be really problematic for you, right? That's probably why it's being very polite to you, the AI. It's scared of you.
Apologetic.
It's apologetic. Yes. There you go. So anyway, there you go. That's my thought of the day, which is we need to add the emotion back in, because it's not going to come.
I don't personally see like AI adding insights or kind of necessarily drawing the conclusions, but kind of to what Niranjan had said with respect to those like efficiencies. Things are going to start moving, I think, faster and faster and faster. And so I think as things speed up, Pamela, what is going to change about product management if everything's going to start moving 2x, 3x, 4x? Is the impact that we just need more product managers? Is the role going to change a little bit? Are we going to be smaller cycles? Is the idea of a 2-week sprint passe?
I think the 2-week sprint stays. I think we have to very much distinguish between what's human, what's not human, right? I kind of going to riff on Jonathan's comments about AI can replace unskilled PMs. There's a certain amount, okay, and I have done my fair share of slogging through data.
I missed that comment. I'd be giggling already.
Slogging through, and it just goes to show you how much data I've had to slog through to actually get insights, right? And that builds your PM skills, right? Now, if all of a sudden you don't have to slog through it and kind of do that incremental growth, how do you grow junior PMs? Like that, I think that's an issue.
So you bring up a good... a couple layers to what you just said that I think are very interesting. One is in engineering, they're facing very much that same sort of problem. If you don't have the junior developers, if you don't need the junior developer to do some of that easier coding, and if all of a sudden these AIs are able to do some of that easier coding, or you kind of have the low code, no code sort of stuff, where do those junior people come from? How do they? It's kind of the old joke with product management. You apply for an entry level product manager job, and what do you see? It says must have 5 years experience. Yeah. Like everyone in product management has seen that. I think to the other parts of that, things are going to be. I think things are going to definitely be accelerated, and I think it's going to be a challenge to figure out how to go with that acceleration while still kind of maintaining the right kind of value, or making sure that you're kind of on the right value trajectory there.
It strikes me as you were talking that I think product owners are going to slide into the junior product manager role. I think that's going to be the way it goes, because some of the things that they do, I don't think can be completely automated or get all the insights from. So they're going to have to get their hands dirty to such a level they'll really understand the product. And then the ones that are able to synthesize and have an overall view, then they'll start moving up. I think that might be the source of it.
Maybe the junior product manager becomes a prompt writer.
Prompt engineer. Yeah, for sure.
Prompt
Yeah.
engineer. Oh, great. I was a prompt engineer and then I became a product manager. That's scary.
We laugh about it, but it's not. I don't know that
somebody's
it's
going to
not
try it.
because I know there's plenty of people using AI to help write user stories or acceptance criteria. A lot of the stuff that kind of gets wrote after a while, where you don't need a lot of creativity, but there's just a lot of typing.
Right.
And a lot of the time that'll get thrown to a more junior product manager to kind of like, here's the big plan, fill in the blanks. And I think AI in some cases is not so bad at filling in the blanks, especially from a perspective of, as we're product managers, we're only trying to provide as much information as needed to accomplish that task, and not over engineer or get too much into the weeds, so that everyone can kind of be empowered in that process. Niranjan, what do you want to add to what we've been just talking about?
Right. No, sure. Yeah, interesting. But I think in terms of just bringing in speed to it, I don't know, like, because like a product manager's role is so dependent on everyone else, and it's kind of a collaborative role, right? Like, no matter how fast I do my job, I still have my teams who will follow up on that speed and that delivery, right? So from end-to-end delivery, we think, I'm not really sure if AI would speed up that process. But how I see AI changing is, like, for really good product managers, it will give them that little bit of time, extra time, to put in more thought, like bring in more thought leadership, bring in more aspects of, hey, like, someone wrote my user story, great, but now I have half an hour free, right? How do I use it? Do I use it to
coffee break?
Coffee break.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
Yes.
you joke, but I think it's a thought break.
Yes. Yeah, and that's where I've been trying to like fine tune that balance, right? Because in a daily product manager's life, and it's a meme, it's a joke, everyone knows, like, you jump through so many meetings and you change context so many times that at some point in time you think, I've dedicated this time to create my roadmap, but then you're jumping on some issue and doing something else. There's also a joke that goes around saying, I have just put in a sick day, but I'm still working to complete my strategic initiatives, like a roadmap or something, like creating a milestone or something like that. So that's where I think this is going to be really helpful, is now you have moved some of your mundane tasks, right? You're still validating those, you're not like just copy pasting things, but now you have this extra time every day. Instead of blocking something for 2 hours, you have 15 minutes every day in this slots to. Now it's up to that person. How are you going to utilize it? Like, help the organization grow, help yourself grow, or go and watch a series.
So I think I admire your optimism. So let me play devil's advocate for a moment, and you can take my challenge or Pamela. So hey, guess what? Things are going more efficiently. That's great. We don't need 10 product managers anymore. We only need 3. Right? Isn't that the more likely scenario that's going to happen? That you're not going to have a CEO saying, "Oh, that's great. They have all this extra breathing room to think now." They're going to be, the expectations that things are going to go faster. And they're gonna that time that you thought you had to think, that we all think that we have to think, especially when we get a new job. It's like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna set aside my mornings for brainstorming or thinking or kind of toying around with stuff. And next thing you know, those mornings turned into your back-to-back meetings. So that's why sometimes you go for that coffee walk, because at least then you're not in a meeting. But I don't. Am I wrong?
Some people will try it. I don't think they'll be successful at it.
Yeah, I agree.
I think those leaps come through thought. And I had this kind of a existential dread at the moment, which is ChatGPT throws out all this stuff, and then you have to read it, right? And I used to do editing for my sins, right? And I'm sitting there thinking, now I have to reparse through a lot of text.
Yes.
And that's also not very fun.
That's where you use Claude AI to review what ChatGPT said.
see, now that at some point, there was somebody who wrote this article about LinkedIn, and LinkedIn kind of has this thing where you can, it has you apply for a job, and they have all these automatic things, AI systems that look at what you've applied. And so somebody came up with this engine that basically applies for all these jobs, right? So now it's AI talking to AI, right? So at some point you need to have human beings doing it, because realistically, unless I can convince AI to, organize my entire life for me, right? At some point I need to interact. The human beings interact with the product. So.
Right.
But don't you see some of that kind of going that way anyway? Like, if AI is interacting with AI, then there's already a process breakdown somewhere, right?
It's a huge process.
Like you're talking like the job app, like we're talking about the job application process. So you're saying if someone's getting AI to deal with your AI, then your AI has already made it so cumbersome to work with, and there's already so devoid of human interaction that it's actually not. I've decided it's not worth my time to really put the effort in to interact with you. I'm going to have this other thing do it, and you know what? That's going to be good enough, because that's how good this process works.
Right. And a great example of that is just taking the job analogy, is how nowadays CVs are prepared, right? Like anytime I advertise an open position or I'm hiring, I get so many CVs, and you can immediately make out, oh, this is AI generated, like, because you have CV creating tools at one end, right, which are helping the candidates, and then you have ATS on the other end, which is being used by the employer. So it's exactly like AI talking to AI. The CV creation tools load it up with so many keywords, match it up 90%, up to 90% with job description, without real context to it. Like, someone will say, hey, I did user feedback analysis or conducted user surveys, but that's just a keyword. There's no context to it. Like, to Pamela's earlier point, there's no emotional context to it. Like, how did you do it? Why did you do it? Like, that.
Oh, those are just your normal bad resumes as it is. We get those all the time.
I view my cover letter as an opportunity to have a real conversation. And someone told me they use ChatGPT to do cover letters. They said, well, cover letters, you can't do an entire brain dump of your entire life to identify those stories which will resonate. I mean, that you're bringing the emotion back in, right? Without that, it's just text. So,
do you guys still write cover letters that go with the resume?
I do, because it's more fun.
Yeah,
I do because it's fun.
You're one of those.
I know. I like to write, right? So that's different. So. Yeah, by the way, there's a whole thing going on here, and I think we're going to have AI abuse cases, because there's people saying you got to be more strict with your AI queries and more polite. It's all over the place.
Well, actually, the way they did a lot of the original, I don't know if they still do this. The way they did a lot of the original training, they do the manual part where the people are they're kind of involved, where the people are involved, especially the outsourced individuals overseas are interacting with it. There is kind of that they're training the AI or providing like a lot of that negative feedback, so that the AI won't go there, won't go to certain areas. So it's kind of like I'd say digital punishment that gets induced on the AI.
Is it tone policing from AI training? Is that what we're talking about?
Not just tone, but they want it to avoid certain topics. So it's a lot of repetitive, like, bad AI, no good AI, don't do that again.
It's like the rolled up newspaper for AI. Sounds good.
I think that's how. I don't know what their process is now, but I know I heard a lot about that. I think. I don't know, year and a half ago, when a lot of stuff was starting to come out. Either of you want to add anything, any kind of final thoughts to this AI topic? And also, at people in the audience, if you have any questions or comments, Tom's has had some great observations as well. Anyone have any other questions that they want us to speak to or address? Now's the time to throw them out there. But Niranjan, Pamela, anything else on AI and its impact on product management?
Yeah, I mean, really amazing discussion. I really like the comments on what everyone else was trying out with AI and how the language is turning out to be, how responsive AI is. But for me, just to summarize everything, yes, it's a good support tool. It's going to help you speed up your analysis. It's going to help you do a lot of unstructured things. Can in some cases be your ignition or starter to just get your thought process flowing. But people being replaced by AI, specifically in product management, that I don't see that happening. If someone does it, I don't see that succeeding very well, because then it wouldn't be a very thought out decision. If at all some leader does end up going that route. Yeah.
And I'm just going to add to that, Niranjan, which is at the end, don't forget to go for coffee. Like read it and then go for coffee and figure out what really makes sense.
Yes. And tell them you're still reading it. Don't let them know you're going for coffee. That's the key part. Yes. Awesome. So we're gonna wrap up this topic now. Folks, feel free to kind of continue the conversation in the comments. Also, as we go on into our next topic in just a few moments, definitely keep asking the questions, keep participating. If people have specific questions that they're curious about, throw them out there, and I'll definitely get them worked into the conversation. So, with that said, our middle part of our show always has a trivia. And so for today's trivia, which you can tell by the sound, who coined the term product market fit? So once again, the question is, and don't say the answer, who coined the term product market fit? And so feel free to talk amongst yourselves without saying the answer. But that's the question, and we'll get to the answer after our second topic has concluded. Who coined the term for product market fit? There we go. Nice, easy one. You just have to know the name of the person. And like I said, no one typed the answer. All right. So that brings us to our topic our second topic tonight, which is about overcoming roadblocks, something that I guess AI is not going to be too much help with. Overcoming roadblocks, addressing impediments, unlocking success for product teams. And so as product people, we encounter, we're used to dealing with all kinds of roadblocks. And so I thought this would be a great opportunity to in the show today to talk about what some of those roadblocks are, how and what our various strategies are that we've used to overcome them. Niranjan, I'll start with you here. What do you see as some of those most common roadblocks that prevent product teams from really operating at their full potential?
Right. I think the first one is having that synergy within the team. For example, if everyone does not have the same understanding of your business goals and objectives, that does lead to some kind of friction, because everyone thinks doing something else is of more higher priority. Conversations become more emotional rather than factual. So just having that synergy and chemistry in the team, I would put it as my number one thing to work on, specifically when you're trying to build a very fast moving or a very efficient product team.
Pamela.
I think I'm going to add another level to that. I think there's two levels, and it was interesting because working with large organization, it's not only the people that are working on the product, right? You have, I mean, if you think about the diagram of who we're working with, right? We're working with our developers, we're working with management, we're working with other PMs in our team, right? So those are all overlapping teams, and the chance for misunderstandings to occur is just almost infinite, right? So I think there's a couple of things to be aware of. So one is there is this thing called stakeholder analysis. It's not glorious, but just understanding where people are and what their understanding of things are and being very explicit about it is extremely useful. It's something I use more on the consulting side, but I think it's something that should easily be adopted by PMs, and I think it would be effective. The other one is to kind of give a name to the problems you've got. So for example, if you're dependent on another organization, to basically call it out, to name it, and say, this is a dependency. And so as a dependency, we need to agree how we're going to work together. So I think we rely on goodwill. We rely on a lot of things to happen naturally. And as I've gone through my career, I've become much more specific about the things that I want, the things that are preventing, that are causing roadblocks, calling them out, and then getting people to acknowledge them and getting people to understand that we need to decide how we're going to work together on an ongoing basis, not on this one, but how are we going to deal with this? Because this is going to happen every single time, right? And if we can do that, our lives become much easier. As I have started implementing these, my entire life has just become much calmer because I recognize I've got to do a systemic approach as opposed to I'm fixing this issue right now approach.
Are you talking about like where people kind of create a document like how to work with me? Is that what you're talking about there, or something a little bit different?
It's not how to work with me. I would say it's more like team charters. It's more psychological dependency, psychological safety. It is bringing, I keep saying this, but it's bringing the humans back in, right? Like the reason you get roadblocks are someone misunderstood. And they were not bad people, right? They just didn't get it, right? So how do you either prevent them from getting to that point, or if they've gotten to that point, how do you then bring them back on board?
Tell me more about this team charter. Like, so what kind of goes into a team charter, and how does a team charter kind of help address these kind of issues?
It's basically, think about it like rules of the road for our team, right? So so I work for an organization where you better be there early, or 5 minutes late is okay. We're going to use Slack to communicate. We're going to use Teams to communicate. You're just very explicit about what you're going to do. This is where we're going to store this information, right? And the more specific you can get, then it means that when somebody kind of goes and does something like we're supposed to communicate in Slack, and all of a sudden they're sending Teams messages and no one got it, right? You go, well, our team charter said we do this way. So it kind of reduces the amount of overhead you get in terms of
team charters are really interesting. Like, I think we should more use them as guidelines rather than guardrails. Like, like this is how it's expected to be done, because sometimes it may not be done. Another thing I think already Pamela touched base on it is, even with a team charter, it becomes really like, so first of all, I think there has to be a buy-in from everyone. And second, it has to, so in bigger organizations, right, we did try to do this once, and it failed at some levels, but it also succeeded at some levels, because what happened is, in my department, in my team, we had a team charter. So my department had 10 other teams working with it, and then there were some cross-functional departments somewhere else, and everyone made and then went and made their own team charter, which kind of became a bit chaotic towards the end. But that's where maybe having that very experienced leadership, also senior leaders within there, needs to be there. And then the team charter should be acknowledged at leadership level as well for it to work as you're expecting it to work.
I'm laughing because I'm imagining the scenario right now. Sorry about me finding glee in your pain. So I guess you said about getting buy-in on the team charters from leadership. Like, talk more about like, I want to stay on this topic for a little bit. Like, what advice do you have for people where they are, maybe all the teams have all these different charters, maybe you're having some challenges with leadership, or maybe they don't even know about it yet. Like, what advice do you have for people who are trying to kind of do the right thing here with these team charters and get it out there and make it work?
I think, we'll try and take a stab at it. So Pamela might have a much better answer to it. What I think has worked is some of that part is non-negotiable in the team charter, which is organization-wide. So basically, what channel of communication are you going to use? What is your escalation hierarchy in case someone is not there? What are your business hours for the office? Like in virtual settings, irrespective of from wherever you work, our business hours are 10 to 4. So you have, like, it's expected that you be online 10 to 4 to address something, or someone knows where you are, kind of things, right? So some things on that team charter should be non-negotiable, should be organization-wide, which you cannot tamper with. But then there should be some flexibility to it for that particular team, like the subset of those employees, which will bring in more psychological safety and create that safe space within team. So maybe something like that can be as simple as, hey, like, let's use some like monthly meetings to discuss this agendas or something like that. So it can be very simple at team level, but at organizational level, there has to be some definite guidelines that everyone needs to follow.
I want to go in two different directions here. Okay, so you talked.
Well, let's do one at a time.
You talked about having monthly meetings. So I want to introduce this concept of on the system and in the system, right? So when you're doing work, you're in the system, right?
Right.
So the monthly meetings are 6 weekly or whatever it is, right? Encouraging people to do things like ops reviews, which is how are things working? Right, allows you to revisit your charter. How do we get things through? Or Department X is driving us crazy. Can you go solve it? Right. So it is actually considering that structure, that time to work on the structure, that time to revisit the structure is actually so critical that you can't just skate over it all the time, because ultimately you get bogged down. So I think that's part of it. And part two of it, which is anytime you have a roadblock. Okay, I want you, just like all of you who are on this call, imagine the last roadblock you had. Was it really the work, or was somebody's feelings hurt because they weren't told in time, or because they thought it should be this way, right? So I find that we were talking about this in AI, and I'm going to bring it back up again, which is we have to deal with people first, right? I hear your feelings are hurt, or I'm sorry I didn't get around to telling you this, or whatever it is, right? Like you have to lead with the emotion, because people won't get to facts without dealing with emotions. And I think, you know, as someone who is extremely task oriented, this has been the learning I've had over the last sort of 15 years, which is I have to lead with people. I can't get anything done unless I get people on board, and unless they take their stress level down. Can't do it.
Yeah, completely agree. Like just one of my experiences, or one of the organizations that I worked before in my past, there was this whole concept about meeting before the meeting, which was like just ridiculous waste of a lot of everyone's time. But if I'm going to have 10 stakeholders and I know these 3 are going to be the decision makers, like, you know, like have a meeting before the meeting to say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I need your alignment and support, and then go into the wider meeting, which kind of as a culture is a big red, like kind of a failure point, I would say, because there's only so many meetings you're going to have, and then everyone's calendar just starts looking like big red blocks here and there. But yeah, so, you know, just an example of how things can go very wrong. And to your earlier point, Pamela, was the roadblock really a roadblock?
And I think this is the one issue we've got with remote work.
Yeah.
Right? Because we used to do that, like by running into somebody in the hallway and going, oh, by the way, I'm going to bring this topic up. You good? All right. You can't do that. Right? Jonathan Cook's trying to put a comment in, and I'm trying to figure out what he actually means by this last one. So
yeah, so I wanted to, Niranjan, I maybe take an opposing view a little to one of the things that you just said. Maybe if I'm or not, we'll see. When you're talking, I don't think necessarily you want to have mandatory pre-meetings to a meeting, but I think to what Pamela's been talking about, not forgetting kind of the human aspect of it, and making sure people are in the loop. I know myself personally, like I'll before an important meeting where certain decisions have to get made, I'll definitely reach out and make sure people understand it, make sure people are aligned, or I'm going to cancel the other meeting, because if people aren't aligned and if it's not going to be a productive meeting, then I still have more. I'll find I have more work to do with the various stakeholders, various decision makers in that process. So I'm gonna. I think of it as a pre-meeting, but it's not usually. It's not like it's not so much structured, but it's, hey, I'm going to meet with this person. I do like a regular one-on-one. Let me bring it up with them when I talk to them. Let me kind of feel them out, see where they are, see if there's more work that maybe needs to happen. But really making sure that they know that they're being heard and not being blindsided in kind of or as they might see it in a larger meeting. And that then they can feel kind of more included in the whole decision process. I don't know if that's different than what you were saying, but I guess that's how my brain interpreted it.
No. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking that there's like a short version of this. So one is you go and meet everybody, right? Which by the way, I did once. I got everybody in line, except I didn't meet with the CEO, and he just did vehemently disagreed.
Oh,
so
that'll do it.
I was scuppered. And the guy who previously agreed with me, basically the moment the CEO said no, was like, oh, it's no, right? So there you go. One technique I've been using recently is putting up my guidelines for making a decision. Like this is the context. We're under the following four conditions or four considerations. On that basis, this is what we're doing, right? So it's not that you let everybody pile in on their decision. So if they come in and they say, well, I don't agree. It's like, well, which of these four do you not agree with? Okay, now let's have that conversation. So you allow a space for the disagreement, and you allow a space for the setting the arena that you want to have a conversation in.
Right. Yeah. You're right, Jeremy. It was a bit different than what you are referring to, and I agree what you just said. Right. Like it is. So that aspect is more to do with cross-functional collaboration and more to do how well you listen to your team members across the department as well. The part I was trying to get to was like talking to the same person maybe 10 times with the same feedback just to show that we are giving you enough importance. So it's more on the culture side to say that, hey, we are giving you enough importance, rather than having that smaller pre-meeting to actually get something valuable out of it and then to align everyone. But yeah, I think that was the difference there. But I agree to what you said, and that's a very important part of a product manager's job, to have that cross-functional collaboration and not just drive something for their own whims and fancies.
Gotcha. So Narajan, since I've got you here, my next question was really about leaning more into talking about overcoming resistance to change. So resistance to change can be like a major roadblock for product teams, especially when implementing new processes or technologies. What strategies have worked for you to help teams kind of embrace change, whether it's tools, process, structural, etc.?
Right. I think again, two things. So first is, as a product manager, anyone would do is just try and understand the problem. Like, why is someone resisting to that change? What are their inherent maybe insecurities or thoughts? And creating that safe space so someone can come in and share their opinion without any repercussions or any fear, basically. And another thing I found is, if there is someone new coming in and you're trying to change something too quickly, even before you blend into the system, that can be another breaking point. So the one way to actually overcome this is be pretty take feedback from everyone, make everyone feel heard. First of all, address their questions categorically. It's not like, hey, today, we are using Jira, from tomorrow we're going to use Asana, and let's do it kind of thing, right? Just see if there is that enough skill set, appetite to move that change, plan it out, explain that plan to everyone. So the more you make people feel comfortable about the upcoming change, address their questions, the more easy it's going to be to bring in that change, and the lesser the resistance. Also, you can rely on some data and facts if you have something to show up during these meetings and discussions.
Pamela?
My favorite technique is to create what some people call a straw man. Is I just say, hey, I had this, thought like this, right? And I don't make it heavy. I make it very light, right? What do you think? Right. And then what you do is you start collecting everybody's input. So by the time you actually get to, we want to do this, and this is how we're going to do it, everybody's had their say, and they've all felt like they've been heard, and it reduces resistance. So that's my way of doing it. Some people might say, oh, you're not prepared. I don't think that's the goal. The goal is not that I come up with the answer. The goal is that the team believes that this is the right thing to do altogether.
Right.
So I spend, it's a lot of casual, small things that get to the point, and by the end of it, people really understand what's going on. Yeah. When you have new people who join the team, which I did recently, and they're not bought in, then boy, trying to get back that team mentality and where are we going, and that's hard. That's
So what do you do there?
Oh my God, what did I not do? I did an entire on psychological safety. I talked to everybody 43 times. It was a lot of talking. It was a lot of trying to bring people on board again.
So, but when you are dealing with bringing new people onto a team and kind of integrating them into like the culture and the work processes, like what advice do you have to other people if they are facing those kind of challenges, especially where you're finding people that maybe aren't bought in?
Well, in this case, I was dealing with somebody who was, on an executive floor who had the ear of very important people and thought what he said had to go, right? And so it was a lot of backtracking on this is the journey we've been on, and you can't dictate this stuff. It was a complex situation, but it was a lot of backtracking and repeating it over and over again, trying to get their management to say something. Like any way that we could to get this guy to really understand what we were trying to do is what we tried to do. Is it successful? I don't know. I ended up finishing the contract, but that was tough.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Niranjan.
I was just saying, these are really tricky situations. But one thing is, once you find their intrinsic motivation and have them create some equity in your idea. So as soon as you get in some contribution from someone specifically, if you are a new team member or some new team member is joining in, that creates that emotional equity into that change or even that initiative. And once you have that, I think it's much easier to break down the barriers. Not all of them might go away. There'll still be a lot of resistance, but once they have that equity in you or in your thought, it's going to be a bit more easier.
Well, I'm going to throw in one last word, because I think underlying, Niranjan, what you're saying has to do with trust. Do they trust you?
Trust.
Right. And the first time people meet you, no one trusts you.
No.
Oh, such a negative view of the world. Wow.
No, it's true. I don't care who you are. You don't trust somebody the first time. You might trust it like the second or third. And, if you've been working with people for 6 months, there's a certain amount of trust. And then somebody new arrives and they don't know you from Adam, as they say, right? I don't know who you are. Why should I listen to anything you say? Back to square zero. And you're like, oh, but we made so much progress.
Yeah.
That's what it goes.
So Pamela, when it comes to product management organizations, what cultural or structural issues most often get in the way of people getting their work done efficiently?
So interestingly, recently I've been studying organizational design, which is not a product management topic, but I found it fascinating. One of the things it talked about was different companies and different types of organizations have different ways that they perceive value. For example, highly regulated industry, conformity is a big deal, right? And product management, by its definition, kind of wants to break the rules all the time. We want to change things. So unless you acknowledge the fact that you're in that type of an organization, then you're going to have a hard time. If you're in Silicon Valley and you got a startup and, people throwing ideas out left, right, and center, then product management's much, much, much easier, right? In a way, it's still difficult, but at least you have people that are kind of in a change mindset. So kind of grounding yourself in what makes the organization successful and how you're breaking people's rules or cultural rules in that organization, unless you really take that to heart, you're gonna struggle. Somebody said politics. Yes, it's politics, but the politics are not random. The politics are specific to the type of organization you have.
Yes.
You want to add to that, Niranjan?
I think some, not having total transparency or clarity on how decisions are made, that I see a big issue that even sets up your culture. Because if your leadership is not transparent enough or decisions are like, for you, it seems like it was a random decision. Like, for example, I make a decision, I don't explain it properly to my team. Immediately the culture is going to go sour to say, oh, do we really trust this person anymore, kind of thing, right? And that's what I always am watchful for, especially when I'm leading some teams or initiatives or something, That's one thing. Another thing I've found in today's world, especially now that I've been working in Canada and a couple of other places, there is so much diversity, right? And then creating that diversity and inclusion aspects, like a very simple thing happened in one of my organizations. I think it was some day, Women's Day or something like that, and someone in the team chat ended up commenting something about men, which was not out of, I would say, hatred or anything like that, but how I would frame sentences would be very different on how maybe someone from some other part of the world, like Europe or somewhere, frame those sentences, right? Your toning, your approach, everything changes a lot. Because I had another situation where we had someone sitting in Poland talking to someone sitting in India, and English is not first language for Poland as well, right? So the grammar and sentences seemed a bit curt, like, on emails specifically, when you try to read it with your own tone, right? It became really tricky. So these are another cultural aspect where we have to sensitize people or educate them more to say that, hey, these are your team members. They are coming from these different backgrounds. And yes, expect some gap in the language, expect some gap in the toning, but one thing remains is you have to trust that the other person is really trying to do their best sitting across from you.
So I'm kind of curious. Like, did when those situations came up, like there's definitely a lot of challenges culturally, from region to region, country to country, just in communication. But it also it's another order of magnitude when you're layering in DEI and understanding around a lot of the issues around DEI. Like, did you end up doing like a training? Because even when people, you can assume the best, but there still needs to be work done if people aren't understanding how to appropriately communicate with one another and respect one another. What were there? Did you end up doing training? Was like what ended up? How did you help kind of bring people together there?
Right. So first thing that I did was like kind of set up a more focused DNI, kind of a couple of team members who led that committee. So they went around talking in the team, sensitizing. And then another thing we started was just celebrating festivals from each culture. Like, not, let's say, have a gathering every other day, but just kind of, sharing it on Slack channel. Hey, today is this day in some part of the world, and this is why it's celebrated. So that brought in another thing. And yes, we did do some trainings for leaders. It was specifically more about being open, or what words you're using, what you're not using, so the language to be used, and being sensitive, and how to create that safe space. Another important aspect that came out of it is creating a fail safe environment, not just psychological safety, but actually uh, giving people that freedom, like, it's okay if you fail, we got your back, kind of thing, right? So that also kind of, again, built that trust environment within the team and organization, rather than just saying, hey, he did that, it's his decision, and that's why we failed, kind of blame game. So it avoided all that. So yeah, training, as well as some, I would say, conscious efforts from a focused group to bring in that cultural aspects and understanding.
When you're saying fail, are you saying fail with respect to um, communicating to another individual or a product failure?
Both. It can be product, process, or just communication gaps as well. But just creating that environment, like, let's say, tomorrow something goes wrong in production. Now, we, rather than digging into, did the QA miss something, did the developer miss something, or did someone write a wrong acceptance criteria? It's more about, hey, okay, it's done. Let's fix it. Let's do a RCA just based on the facts, so we can avoid that situation. Like, maybe put in a checkpoint or something to avoid that situation repeating. We really don't care whose mistake it was. Rather, the focus is more on rectifying it and making sure it is not repeated.
Pamela, your 2 cents.
I don't know how many times, because at one point I had like 13 different countries reporting into me. And I can tell you, remember we talked about sarcasm? Sarcasm does not work well in emails, it turns out.
Yeah.
And the amount of times I had to like dive in the middle of a conversation and say to both sides, like, back off, right? And then try and fix it. I think in my most recent work, what I have found that works the best is to teach management or to yourself. Acknowledge that you are in error. I think there's a huge learning for the organization when you say, I apologize, I didn't mean to, right? And this is what I meant. And once people see that you can do it, then they're more willing for themselves to do it. And then after that, for me, it's more working with individuals, right? And Rajan, you're right. When you have people who English is their second language, boy, you never know what you're going to get, right? They didn't mean it to be whatever, and it was, right? So yeah, leadership has to kind of model the behavior they want to see, be much more specific. I always thought leadership was kind of like this inherent stuff and it was all touchy-feely. And I've learned over time that it's very specific. And you have to be, plan what you're going to say, decide the tone that you want to set. And then if someone is not following it, then you have to talk to them and say, this is what I expect. So step one, model. Step two, can we all get on this bandwagon?
Yeah, I've found myself leading a very large global organization. You got to start with some definitions. Just understanding diversity means different things in different countries, and you need to. You can't just say, "Hey, we're doing DEI stuff," if people don't know what D means or E means or I means, and so you kind of have to start there. And in a lot of places, there are going to be some really core cultural differences and about how people think about each other. But I think to your point, Pamela, that's also why it's important that leadership makes it clear in the decisions they make and the leaders that they pick, where the line is and what the expectations truly are and the kind of respect and acceptance people should have of one another in that place. But it needs to be really modeled by leadership, but also understand that people are not all starting on an equal ground, equal footing, and you have to do you got to spend the time to actually honestly do the teaching, and then help people kind of bridge that. And then I think to your other point, in that also be accepting of the mistakes people are going to make as they're learning along the way. But you got to create an environment where that's going to work.
It's also interesting with product managers because very often we might be like one person and then we're dealing with lots of other groups, right? So what is our acceptance and our authority within those groups? So establishing your authority, there's a whole session I do on it, but establishing your authority with other groups is sort of a very crucial part of being successful. Because somebody could say, well, you have no writ, you can't say anything because they're not your people, right? And you have to say, well, that's not how we're going to work, right?
Yep. Anyone else want to add on this topic before I transition to the next part of our show?
It's an interesting question. Is your org product-led or product-informed?
Most of mine have been product-informed, I must admit.
The one I'm currently working in is kind of a mix between sales-led and product-led. So it's a hybrid. Some things work well, some things we make it work. So there's never a perfect thing to do.
No. What's your preference?
I've worked in a lot of different ones, but if I have to go back, I think I'll go to one of the organizations that I worked with. It was product-led, and it had a lot of synergy because everyone was aligned rather than everyone trying to do their own thing. So irrespective of what you follow, as long as you have that alignment in terms of longer term growth, it will work out. But gun to my head, if I have to pick something, I would prefer product-led. Yeah.
Yeah, let's try not putting that to your head.
Yeah.
So all right, so we're gonna transition to our next piece, and if you hear the music playing, that must mean it's time for the trivia answer to the question of who coined the term product market fit? Once again, who coined the term product market fit? And so I'm gonna go to I'll flip a coin. Niranjan, do we have an answer? Pamela, do we have an answer?
Yeah, I mean it's a bit of I would say tricky answer, but just recently I did a whole series, like 5-6 articles on product market fit just last week on LinkedIn. So interesting, I had researched about that topic. I'm still not clear, but I want to say Mark Anderson in 2007 maybe, but there's a lot of other information that comes up when you actually try and search about product market fit.
All right. Pamela, do you have an answer?
I think, I was going to say Marty Kagan, but I think you're right, Niranjan. I think you're right, because I think it didn't come out of a product-centric organization. I think it came out of the venture capitalists.
Yes.
That's where I think it came out of.
Yeah. Right.
All right. So I'm looking in the comments. I'm not seeing any answers in there. Feel free to post your answers now. I don't see any answers there. So let's before I fully get to the answer, and I think you're both thinking in the right direction. Definitely something that came out of the venture capital world. But I think good place to start is, what is product market fit? And I think a good way to think about it, product market fit is when your product really hits the mark with a specific group of people. It's when they get what you're offering, use it, love it, tell other people about it. It basically means you're solving a real problem for them, and they're happy to pay for it and spread the word. So that's kind of a slightly verbose definition of product market fit. And so I'd say, in his book, The 4 Steps to the Epiphany, Steve Blank referred to product market fit as a step between customer and validation. Mark Andreessen, someone we just heard mentioned, co-author of the Mosaic browser, I decided to pull that fact out, and also a highly successful VC, provided the following definition. Product market fit means being in a good market with a product that can satisfy that market. I just didn't like that he said market so many times in one sentence. It kind of hurt my brain a little. And so while Sequoia Capital founder, another venture capital company, Don Valentine, developed the thinking behind the term, the coining of product market fit is credited to the co-founder of Benchmark Capital, who's also the co-founder of Wealthfront, another that you might have heard of. His name is Andy Ratcliffe.
Oh, somebody got it in the. They got it in the.
They did?
Comments.
Yes.
Wow. Nice. Very nice. Very nice, everyone. So yeah, Andy Ratcliffe coined the term. There's a lot of people along the way, and Mark Andreessen has definitely been a big advocate and speaker on the matter. So it's if you actually do a lot of research online, some people will credit Mark with coming up with the term there. But no, not him.
Yeah.
So with that said, we're about to kind of wrap it up, and also just Taji, awesome work there coming up with the right answer. Tahar. Tahar. Oh, there we go. Tahar. Okay, Tahar. Sorry about that. So with that said, Niranjan, Pamela, any final comments?
Yeah, I mean, great discussion on AI. We summarized it earlier, but even on Roadblocks, I think from overall discussion, if there's one takeaway I'm taking is, there's still this big factor of emotions and humans being involved everywhere. So product management is not just about process and your product. It's more about understanding the parties involved in it. And if you're successful at that, you'll be a great product manager.
Yeah. And so for anyone who wants to get in touch with you, tell people how they can reach you, how they can find you online.
Yes. So I have the same name on LinkedIn, Niranjan Rode. I do run a pro bono mentorship program through LinkedIn. Very recently, I just got to know today, in fact, like a few hours ago, 2 of my mentees, they did crack a good offer, one at Adobe as a product lead. So excited about it. You will find the link and everything on my LinkedIn post. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me through LinkedIn.
Great. And your LinkedIn is definitely in the YouTube description and elsewhere where we've done this. Pamela, you're up.
Agreed about the emotion stuff. I think there's always this tension in product management between the tech stuff, which is how are we going to make sure that we use tech and AI, for example, to make our life easier, and how do we roll in the emotions when it's appropriate, and how do we look at a situation, decide which one we're going to call on, right? We're always in that liminal space. In terms of what I do help people sort of on an ad hoc basis. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, I have one of these lovely last names that not many people have. And if they do, they're probably my relatives. So that's good. So you can find me. And if you go to my website, I have a tab it's PamelaScher.com, and I have a tab for job seekers and their resources, which is literally stuff I find useful and I stick in a Google Drive somewhere that's shared. So happy to talk to people and happy to have you download what makes sense for you.
Awesome. And how can people find you online?
LinkedIn's absolutely the best.
Excellent. So I just want to say a big thank you to everyone tuning in our off-camera part of the roundtable. It's your engagement, questions, and comments are really what make this podcast special. Your participation is a huge part of what makes TPG Live have its unique value, and your engagement, questions, comments are awesome. And again, really a special thanks to both of our speakers, Pamela Scher over at Leading Agile, and Niranjan Road at Product Calgary, board member over there. I think I got a few takeaways today from the accelerating development of AI, those faster cycles, and I guess more coffee breaks that we'll be having to take along the way. How AI is going to be helping with going to be helping us, and then also how overcoming a lot of impediments along the way through stakeholder analysis, agreeing on how to work together, perhaps through charters or other forms, and just a lot of great takeaways, a lot of good advice along the way. And I'll just say, for people who are joining us, whether you're an engineer, a new product manager, designer, you're in sales, chief product officer, a chief anything officer, maybe you're just curious about product management. It's your thoughts, questions, and stories are what really make our conversations better. And we'd love for you to jump into the on-screen roundtable at some point. So just shoot me a message at jhorn@theproductguy.com, and we can kind of take it from there. We have so many topics to cover. So if there's other topics that we haven't covered yet, or you don't know if we've covered yet, please leave some comments and leave those topics in the comments below, and we'll check them out for future episodes. And so, just finally, to everyone, everyone could really do me a really good quick favor. So if you're really enjoying today's conversation, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and also if you can, I really would appreciate it if you could tell maybe 5 friends about the TPG Live podcast and the Product Way YouTube channel. It would really mean a lot, and it's a great way of helping support all the work that we're doing here. And again, just everyone, once as we wrap up, thank you, and I look forward to seeing you all at the next roundtable. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.